Well, welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. We are back after a nice hiatus in the off season. We've been doing our research. We've been learning everything we can about the new system and the new administration and the new coaching staff and getting appropriately optimistic about what's to come. First of all, I'm Steve.
I'm Connor.
And that's it. That's the only people we have.
Just Connor.
Just a bunch of homers.
It's Lucas.
Yes,
Jay.
we're all here at full strength. It's been a while. It's been several months. Since the storm and following the spring game and the emergency get it out their pod and get the hell out of here and get to shelter.
That's right.
Was that the last pod we had?
For
I
hail?
think that's the last one.
Wow.
For
Hail.
hail. Hell was coming, but we're back. Here it is.
About 3
What's
months.
today? It is July 20th. We are like a week and a half away from guys reporting for practice and getting this thing started.
Dylan Gabriel's already got him reported to the lake.
That's nice. We're going to play a lot of lake games. There's a lot of games at the lake, I think, this year. I'm not sure. It's a different schedule now with the SEC and
Yeah.
everything. Well,
South.
we got a lot to discuss. We're fired up. We got some topics that I'd sent around before we can discuss, but let's start with just what's on everybody's mind. What are they thinking here in the middle of the summer? How are they feeling? Are they realistic? Are they optimistic? Are they pessimistic? How you feeling, Lucas?
I have not been thinking much about OU football.
Bullshit.
You don't believe that?
Well, I don't believe you've been thinking a lot, but
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I see how it is.
But when you do.
So it's been a nice off season. It's been nice to have a little bit of break, and I guess that comes with, in my mind, confidence of what we've got building and what we got going on. I don't follow recruiting like you guys do, although you do share a lot that helps to keep me informed, but it sounds like recruiting's going extremely well.
Yeah, it does. We're in on a lot more targets legitimately at this part of the process. A lot of times we would be in early with going up against Bama and Ohio States and Georgia's for prospects, and then it would slowly kind of trickle off and more notes would come out and be like, well, they've kind of lost touch a little bit, and OU seems to be out of the running for this. But
So we were like an also ran before where we were like in that top 5.
Yeah, I think it was cool for kids to put OU in their, here's my top 7 list, here's the big boy schools. Don't know how much of a chance we had with elite defensive players, but this time around, I think just the cachet that comes with Venables and what he can do,
And the full staff,
and
right?
Bates and what he can do with his D line.
Jay Valai's finding some guys.
Yep.
I mean, some DBs that we
An
otherwise wouldn't have gotten.
An actual DB coach that played the position
Yep.
Is
in
this
college
the
and
best
NFL.
July for defensive recruiting that we've had in the last 7 years?
I think statistically it's the best July we've had in the last 20 plus years.
Wow.
In number of commitments in a single month.
Wow.
I don't know the breakdown by
Which is a
star
little different
rankings
environment
or-
now than it was 15 years ago. Obviously, the recruiting cycle's different, but still it's significant.
Yep.
Very significant. Well, that's
Also,
what I'm
too,
hearing.
It seems like the eye for talent, and I'll actually give Grinch and them some credit for this. They were in on players that were slightly underrated at the time that ended up getting those bumps to high 4-star statuses.
And we just couldn't keep them.
Well, we did get some of them, but now it's even more so where I don't want to even try to pronounce the kid's name, but it's a kid out of St. Louis, a defensive end, and not very many people were on him at first, and we were gung-ho on it, and On3 is a fairly new recruiting site, but they've bumped him all the way up to the number 7 player overall in the whole country.
Yep.
So
That's pretty.
defensive evaluations.
He won an MVP at a camp
Yeah.
this last weekend. So
Yeah, defensive evaluations, and I'm sure offensive too, but they seem to be going in the right
The
direction.
offense
that
seems
way.
to be really not missing too much of a beat, to tell you the truth, from my perspective. And the other thing I'll say about it is, this may be my bias, but it seems like it's a little bit more well thought through, well rounded, not just trying to take stabs at the highest profile guy you can find, the highest star rating you can find, but actually getting people plugged in that can work in the system and work effectively for what you're trying to accomplish. I would like to see it take a step to a higher level at some point, but so many of the recruits under the Riley regime didn't pan out, didn't commit, didn't stick around.
Or committed and decommitted.
Well, yeah, and when I say commit, they didn't
Yeah.
commit to the
All the way
program all the
through.
way through.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
would be transfers out, or they never really saw the field. They never really saw production.
Yeah,
But yeah, very much would commit and decommit.
the stark difference between the two philosophies of recruiting between BV and Lincoln. Lincoln wanted to have that flash. He wanted people to commit and make it a thing on social media and really try and build his class that way with like, look who we've got on board. Who else wants to jump on the train?
And then apparently would leave it there, though.
Yeah,
Apparently would get
right.
that commitment and would say, you're in the boat, stay in the boat, I'm going to go get more people for the boat.
Right.
I think that's a question that I would say, how that was always a concern over the past, like, especially 2-3 years, where we'd get a big commitment and it's like, all right, at what point is the other shoe going to drop and this guy going to say, well, actually, you know, I'm gonna go to Bama, or I'm gonna go to Florida State, or wherever else.
and even
might
brutally,
be.
we
Like,
lost some of those guys
In the last second.
on the last hour. I mean,
Yeah.
like
Quite
the day
Which you
before.
can't do.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's just brutal.
it's bad enough if you lose them in the last month and you're trying to find a replacement that doesn't exist, but you're not replacing them with air
on
when you've
signing
got the
day, your
signing
SOL.
day. Yeah,
But he
exactly.
also put a lot on the shoulders of the quarterback. He brings in
Yes.
Rattler. Rattler's all over social media recruiting receivers.
He kind of
Yeah.
You know, we got the
outsourced
3
recruiting to
5-stars.
his 5-star
Right.
quarterback.
and that
Then
works.
he gets Caleb.
They
Caleb has the
didn't pan
Sooner
out.
Summit.
Weiss has a chance to pan
Brings in a bunch of guys. Gets some of them to go ahead and come to campus. But like Jay said, you get the splash. You get your big quarterback to bring in, you know, all the guys that he can get on social media to commit, and then some of them last second bounce out.
Well, that all kind of alludes to the question, some of the questions that I was asking you guys before. And one of the things I'd like to ask and see what our answers are is, how do we feel in general about this upcoming season for OU? And how does it compare to how we felt at this point last year? So at this point last year, I think you pulled up the, where we that was a little, we weren't quite to the point of planning the Tulane trip, which didn't happen, but we were getting
we
close
were getting
to
there.
it.
I mean, it was definitely something we were talking about and figuring out.
And the question then, in comparison, are we more realistic in our appraisal now, or do we have just different rose-colored glasses on going into this season? Who has some thoughts on how they feel
I
about
mean,
this
I had us
season?
10-2 going into last year, and we went 10-2, as I recall.
But that's speaking record specifically. How do you feel about
Right.
the team and what you're going to see on the field, as opposed to where last year? You know, I think all of us, if memory serves me, I know at least for me, I said, man, when was the last time that we were going to really be able to sit on our defense being
Yeah.
the most productive unit out on the field as opposed to our offense?
I mean, I feel good about our defense going into this year more than last year, but I don't feel as good about the offense going into this year as last year.
As you did, but
Mainly because of the uncertainty of how it's all going to look, since we have a new offensive coordinator, we've got a new quarterback, receivers. We lost two starting receivers essentially between Mario and Hazelwood. Weiss is coming back from injury. Mims is still there.
unproductive starting wide receiver.
Right. But going into last season, we didn't know they were going to be unproductive.
Right.
We were like, oh, shit, Mario is a true freshman, but he looks really fast. He's going to fill the Hollywood Brown role.
We've got a ton
And then
of
we
skill.
thought
We're not
Hazelwood's
worried
going to be
about
the
it.
next CeeDee Lamb, and neither one of those things turned out to be. And they're gone. But with
you're gonna see a
Lebby,
lot of guys fulfill
I didn't watch
roles.
enough Ole Miss football to know how amazing Lebby's going to be in theory.
right.
Well, they had a
Well, I
better
think
offense statistically than we did.
Right.
And you know they're playing better defenses than we did.
Right, significantly better defenses.
And I don't think they had
All right, SEC hype man.
I don't think
talent.
they had the talent.
Not
Maybe
even
maybe they
close.
did, maybe they didn't, but
No,
I don't think
not
so.
even close. Not at least the raw talent. Maybe the developed talent. So your answer was a little mixed between your appraisal at this point going forward last year and how it ended up, and you got to kind of separate those two things. So I would say my expectations last year, echoing what Connor said, were really high. I thought our offense was going to be back to levels approaching what we saw under Kyler and Baker,
Well, Rattler finished that season
Finished
well.
very
Yeah.
strong, very
I
very.
mean, we
strong.
all thought he was a,
So I
a
thought
top 5
that was going to be
Heisman
great,
contender.
and just like you said
I
about
will
those receivers
rebut that in a second.
and running backs and so many positions, I felt like things were lots of reasons for optimism. And then the same as Connor, I was looking forward to finally being able to depend on the defense and think that the defense was going to come through for us. I fully expected and said repeatedly, I predict we're going to be a top 20 defense. And I will stand by, we should have been a top 20 defense.
After the NFL
given
draft,
the
it should have
talent
been.
that we saw in the draft and,
Right.
and what happened in the
Yeah,
draft.
going into last year, Grinch did make a difference. You could see the improvement in the defense, and after 2 seasons, and coming into last year, if they kept that same projection
Right.
of
Yeah,
improvement,
they should have been there.
I expected the defense to be much better last year.
I think that was reasonable.
I don't really know what was more disappointing last year was just the
That's
lack
it.
of production
That would be a
from
great
the
argument.
defense.
Yeah.
I think
Or
that's-
how we just couldn't move the football
I think
at all.
that's the defense is definitely more disappointing, and the offense is much more shocking.
Shocking. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So I
What were
put
you going to say about Rattler?
so I took some notes on this. I feel like I'm in a really similar place this year as I was last year, but for completely different reasons. I do, and I have a
More realistic today.
yeah.
So you've got us going 12-0 just like last year.
Good point. And so
Have you seen our schedule?
if you want me to read this whole paragraph I wrote it, I'll
Please
read it.
do.
But- so yeah, so I feel like I'm in a similar place this year. I was excited last year, but had some questions about Rattler specifically being able to be a winner and maintaining the hype, especially that he had going into the season. Felt like there was a lot of hype around an unproven product, and I think a lot of that applies this year as well, definitely. I mean, there's a ton of new stuff this year that we have. So I'm trying to stay out of that mainstream hype. I think we are going to be more realistic as a group.
Well,
But
one of us for sure will be.
I think the fan base is going to be disappointed at times with the fact that this is a young team and there may be some things that we have to work through, essentially, with a new system, a lot of young guys. That being said, we're going to win the national championship. So,
All of that was extremely fair.
but
Except for the last piece.
That was extremely accurate. I feel like and this just might be biased talking. I don't know.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to answer this question year after year after year. But I feel like I see things in a eyes wide open, better reality today than I did at this time last year, or at any time before the morning after the OSU game last year when Lincoln makes his announcement. So
we should make that an output of the pod, though. We should write our statements about the
That's
general
pretty good.
feelings, and then
we make our general predictions. Like
Yeah.
I'll say that I think we're going to compete for the Big 12 title with a chance to compete for the playoff. And I'll be disappointed if we're not competitive there. I don't mean we're going to make the playoff necessarily, but we should be in the hunt for it.
Yep.
Well, it's a
Um,
massive disappointment, I feel like, if we don't win the Big 12 championship.
I agree. I totally agree. And that's partly relative to where the Big 12 is in my appraisal right
Yeah.
now. I stand prepared to revise that if they surprise the hell out of us, but I don't see that happening. But I would relate it back to the way I used to feel about OU football when I was a teenager and in the 90s. And I remember talking to people, being in Florida talking to people and telling them how good OU was going to be and them not understanding what I was saying, and they were right, because I thought we were going to be better than we were, and I thought we deserved to be better than we were under Gibbs, and leading into actually in the Schnellenberger year and also in the Blake years. I thought there was more to hope for. I held us to a higher expectation. But afterwards, I look back and I see, wow, there are things I didn't understand that were amiss that now I see. And you could see that under Bob Stoops when he comes in the first few years of the Stoops regime, not just in the success, but in the way he conducts his program, the way he does everything top to bottom, that it's totally different than the regimes that we were looking at before. And sort of my rose-colored glasses come off at that point, and I look at it more realistically. I still had real high expectations and thought we should, and we did compete for national titles in years we lost in 2003, 2004, etc. And so I think a person could look back and say, oh, you were crazy to think we were going to win the national title, which would be an unfair assessment when you're talking about the 2003 and 2004 years. It would be a very fair assessment and I didn't think we were competing for the title, but I thought we were on the rise in the Gibbs years and the Blake years, which we clearly were not. So I look at it this way to think, looking back now at how I felt about the season going in last year, I was unrealistic, but also didn't know some things I know now. Now I know things about the regime. I know things about just the lack of coordination, the lack of a thorough program from top to bottom that's really well run, that today I appreciate. Now, there may be things in the Brent Venables years that I look back and say, oh, that was a big hole that I didn't recognize at the time. I'm
But
sure
for
there
me,
will be.
for me as a fan, it's very difficult, at least the way that I approach OU football in a very passionate manner, to go into a season and think that we are going to be worse off than what we were last year, even if that means, we only lost 2 games last year, and
but didn't play for the title.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to be worse off than losing 2 games, especially in the nowadays with the league that we're playing in and the league that we're going to be playing in. And I've thought about that too. Like when we go to the SEC and we do have one of those rough years where we do go 8-4. Like, well, how am I going to feel about that? Like,
It's not possible.
yeah, exactly. We don't do that. So I know that there's a lot of question marks, but at the same time, it'll be hard for me ever, and I do try to look at things realistically. But I am a homer. Like I like it. Like it builds up between, you get me to between June and September, and like the hype in my body is on this upward trajectory. I was thinking about it today. Like you could write a full essay on the feeling I get when they play that first intro video and we're all standing up in the stadium.
Yeah.
And like just like
chills.
I look like a 5-year-old smiling.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. Like
Absolutely.
And that's why I feel the way I do. I'm amped.
But you have an optimistic demeanor in general. And
Yeah.
I think definitely an optimistic demeanor towards OU. I think, Lucas, you have a pessimistic demeanor towards OU. I think you're pessimistic about it. You look, you see things for, and so that guides your thinking into thinking it's not going to be that great.
I mean, I have a pessimistic overall worldview.
Yes.
If
Yes,
you want to
do.
go with that.
Yes, you do.
But
yeah.
I'm a realist
and you
when
do
it comes to OU football.
you close yourself off to disappointments that I will proliferate
surprised
more.
by.
And will take a little bit probably harder than what you do, because you've been able to compartmentalize or lean back on the fact like, oh, this is what I said all along, or this is what I expected at the
10-2
beginning of the
last year, nailed it.
Like we could have been 8-0, super strong, and then lost our last 2 games, and you would have been able to say, well, I told you we'd lose 2 games. Doesn't matter. We could have looked like the best team in the nation.
We did lose 2 of our last 3,
So-
excluding the bowl game.
But
But
no,
I mean-
but to his point, like, I think we could have been, when we were looking at when we were 9-0, and it was the worst 9-0 in the history of football.
Yes, it
the
was.
weakest. We've been the strongest possible, and we lose the next 2 games. You totally take credit for that 10-2 prediction.
Yeah.
If we win in the bowl game, and that isn't. But those aren't consistent.
What part of that's not consistent?
You can't claim
I mean, where our
every
schedule
path
was-
to that outcome as
with
if
that-
you
what I'm saying-
predicted
yeah,
the
and what I'm
path
It's
saying
not,
is we
hedging,
could-
it's not
perfectly.
hedging your bet.
I mean, if you go back and look, and
It is
I
hedging
said,
his bet. He's
Yeah.
100%
I
hedging
said
his
we were
bet.
going to go 10-2, and I gave you 4 games that I was concerned with.
And those
we
were
lost
very
2
good.
of those 4. Well,
And those were-
actually, I didn't have Baylor as one of those.
But what I'm
I
saying is
had
we could have been
Texas,
world beaters.
K-State, OSU, and Iowa State. I think were the 4 that I
And
predicted.
none of us disagreed with any
Right.
of that.
No, you guys said we're going undefeated. We're national
No,
championship.
no. All of us agreed those were games to watch out for.
Right.
I don't remember if
And none
any of us saw Baylor as a
did
game
you know
to watch
Baylor
out
was
for.
picked 9th last year
Were they really?
in the Big 12?
Well, that would
out of
explain
10
why I don't
teams?
think any of us thought they would be any
Yeah.
good.
And
But
that's the reason
that
I'll never be a
segues-
sports pundit, is because I will never pick against OU.
that segues into how I feel about
yeah, I
things.
was going to ask Ken.
I've always been intrigued every offseason by the coaching carousel. I don't know why I like it so much, or maybe I do know
you
why
like
I like
carnivals.
it so much.
You've always been that kind of kid.
You've never
I
had to
just
be someone
find it-
who's impacted by it either.
That's true.
It's
but
true.
I find it fascinating how I don't feel like coaches would make that much of an impact. I feel like the players are players and so on. Like there would be a small impact by having a new coach or whatever. But teams legitimately go from a crappy 4-8 to a 10-2.
Dave Aranda.
Aranda,
Yeah.
exactly.
Bob
I
Stoops.
think Venables
Yeah.
Venables
Matt
is
Campbell.
Aranda.
I agree.
Aranda was one of the most He was always the top 1, 2, or 3 defensive coordinators in the country, most highly regarded. He finally takes over a team. He turns them around like that. You contrast that.
You say turn around. They didn't turn. They were very good.
Yeah, but then they had a huge down year because Rule, and they had a lot of players leave.
Right. So
And they were they were 2 and something, right?
They won 2 games the year before.
Yeah,
And then
last.
they
Two
won a Big
games.
12 championship.
Yeah, 2 games and then Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
okay, so
I
I'm
would-
forgetting. Yeah, I'm forgetting. Okay, so between them playing us for the Big 12 title, then they only won 2 games the next
The
year.
next
Yeah,
year.
because Rule
Under
went to the
Rule
NFL.
left. Yeah,
Right.
Rule is
Aranda
what I'm
took
talking
over.
about, not Campbell.
So,
sorry.
So Aranda had a down year,
yeah,
and then he won a Big
turned
12
around his own
championship.
program.
Right. But
it,
We
They
are
had a bunch
not
of
where
players that
Baylor
left.
was. I mean,
Right.
Venables is coming
Right.
in to a team that is loaded.
Right.
So if you have
didn't miss a step, didn't miss a beat, but they did. Yeah, I get
if you
your
have
point.
that same level of new coaches, new staff, new development, new way of looking at things, the other teams around the league aren't going to be quite used to what you're doing, right? They're not in tune with exactly what you're going to call in all these different plays.
Good point.
I just feel like that's why I'm so optimistic because
Our
Levy-
staff has been dramatically upgraded.
our staff is upgraded. I don't
Dramatically
care who you
upgraded.
talk to.
Dramatically
You can say that
upgraded.
losing Lincoln
Everything is upgraded.
is a hit.
They replaced
okay?
the lights. I
But
got pictures
Lincoln-
of it. Everything's upgraded.
Lincoln was a great offensive coordinator,
Yeah.
a very average head coach.
I'd agree.
And
But his record
Levy-
doesn't reflect that
Levy
necessarily.
is considered, Levy has been considered, though, one of the top offensive minds, young offensive minds in all of college football. And he has a quarterback that he already coached for an entire season that we got coming
But
in.
you also have to factor in Lane Kiffin, because was the entire Ole Miss offense Levy's doing, or was it Lane Kiffin has a big influence on the offense?
But
Well, I
Baylor,
don't
but,
think you
but
hire
Baylor,
someone if
Baylor's
that's the
offense when
case.
Baylor's offense was good was Levy. UCF's offense when UCF was good.
He wasn't the offensive coordinator at Baylor.
Was he just an assistant?
Yeah, Levy was the
He
running
was a
backs
big,
coach.
but he was a big
He was
part
a
of
big
that
part of what they
offense
drew up,
and-
right?
I mean, he
That was Bryles.
He's still been a part of
yes,
some
and
prolific offenses,
right.
and everywhere he's been is just coincidentally, really, really good at offense.
yeah. Like
I
I'm
don't
going
think
to
it's
give.
coincidental.
I'm
But you
gonna
can say
give-
the same thing about Lane Kiffin when he was at Bama, and then he moved to where'd he go? Florida International Atlantic. I can't
Florida
keep those straight.
International.
And then he
That's
took
just
the Ole Miss
such a
job, and
different
now Ole
level.
Miss is really good at offense. But was it just Levy, or was Lane Kiffin a huge influence on that?
Well, I think the staff.
I'm sure all of
I think
it's
staff
impact.
in
but I
general
would say
an
you have
impact.
to. I have a lot of confidence in Levy. I think you don't have as much confidence in Levy. I've got a lot of confidence in what he's going to be able to do.
I'm not saying he's not a top 5 offensive coordinator. I just don't know.
I think you want him to prove himself, which is fair.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
That is
Like I said,
fair.
at Baylor,
That's
he was
very
running
fair.
backs coach.
I'll give you that.
At UCF, he was offensive coordinator before he went to Mississippi. And Matt Corral came out of nowhere last year because obviously Levy was making the play calls, but also
But also,
a big part of that is Lane Kiffin.
nationally, when you hear people talk about OU, the offensive staff is in place.
Right.
We have the same
Right.
O-line coach, running back coach, tight end coach, wide receiver coach. We just got an offensive coordinator
With a lot of continuity.
with continuity already with the quarterback that's brought in.
and
it's
honestly,
not a
with
wholesale
several
change
guys
on
you're not
offense.
expecting to lose.
What you might be concerned about is a wholesale change on defense because
Mm-hmm.
every single coaching member was replaced on defense. But then you go back to, well, this is a Brent Venables
Yeah.
hand-picked. I legitimately think he got every single guy
He went
to come
after.
coach that he wanted to.
I think you're right.
I think so,
and
too.
it worries me. This is maybe my optimism, but this could be actually very accurate. That this is a legitimate worry that he can't keep these guys as long as we hope he can keep these
for
guys.
sure.
Because it is that type of a Bob Stoops' first couple of years dynamite
Mm-hmm.
staff.
Yeah. Levy and Bates are your first two that you're just like. Then again, I don't know if I can't necessarily see Bates as a head
Yeah,
coach
I don't
from
think
what
Bates
I've
is a
seen.
head coach either.
But I see. I
But he
mean,
could move up to coordinator.
yeah,
Or
Levy's
something
gonna
somewhere
be
else.
Levy's gonna be if the offense produces in his first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Levy's gonna be.
He's gone.
He's gonna be a first pick on a lot
and
of
that's
people.
all
who-
Yeah.
okay. And
But-
that's
and that's what
okay.
you want.
Yeah, exactly. You want
So-
a
Give Kel
program
Gundy a
that
chance.
produces people. I would be favor of that, or just go find the next guy who wants to be part of a championship team. And Bob Stoops found a lot of great offensive coordinators, and that at least produced great. We may have gotten frustrated by him from time to time, but even the ones we were really frustrated by produced amazingly. here's where, and this is going to be a two-edged sword. I want to go back and slap myself last year to say, wake up and see the realism about what should be a concern going into last season. But at the same time, that kind of turns on itself to say, what makes you think this year isn't just a different version of that? And I really think it is distinctly different. I think I'm legitimately more excited about this year and our prospects for both this season and the future than I had a right to be last year looking into that season. And at this point, I guess, well, not quite at this point, right? We didn't yet know about the SEC news, but we almost were about to find out about the SEC news, and that kind of probably shaded, changed our perspective on the whole season and the outlook, because we had that to look forward to, which may have allowed us to not look as critically at everything else going on in that season.
There were a lot of external stories and headlines going on that definitely took away from, hey, like, what's the product that we're going to be watching on the field? Which is why again, I still sit back on, I mean, man, like, not just us, or, you know, look how many people were wrong about a lot of things. Like, look how many people were wrong about it wasn't just us saying the defense was going to be great. Everyone was saying that. It wasn't just us saying Spencer Rattler is a Heisman contender.
Right, he was the
he was
far
the front
number
runner.
one.
He was the front runner. So, I mean, there was a lot of smoke around the team before the season started.
Last year can be a 30 for 30, 15 years from now.
It probably can.
Quite
If
legitimate.
they can find out
If
the
they can
legitimate
find the
fact
stories.
that USC was getting Lincoln
Yeah.
in September.
That
Man,
would
that's
be
a that's a
fantastic.
challenge. Like,
Yes.
that's like, if you can do that,
There,
oh my
well,
LA
you
God.
know
Times-
there's somebody.
You're gonna
The LA
make a
Times
lot
has
of money.
some emails or texts from September.
You know
after
there's
they fired
somebody.
Helton. Oh, it was
Somebody's
so
sleeping
good.
on that. Somebody's got
Oh, yeah.
texts. Somebody's got
sure.
emails. Somebody at one of two, if not both programs, have these things.
Yeah.
Somebody knows the inside story. Somebody is waiting to be burned by Lincoln in 5 years, in 10 years, or whenever to come clean on this, and it'd be a fantastic
Well, clearly
story.
he's not afraid to burn bridges.
No,
because
he's
Homeboy
not.
has burned a lot in
Yeah,
this
he
in
has.
this part of the world.
Yes,
so
he has.
It's only going to be a matter of time before he pisses off a sports writer in LA.
I mean, he'll be in the
And-
NFL in 2 seasons before they go to the Big Ten anyway.
Man,
Well, there's a lot of
he's got
questions
a lot of work
about
ahead of
those
him.
predictions.
He's got a
But
lot of work
rather
ahead of
than
him.
look at them, I'd rather ask a question related to OU, back to this upcoming season. We had exactly one player on the first team All Big 12, the punter, which is such a metaphor or whatever for the status of the respect we're getting. How many players will OU have on the 2022 All Big 12 first team when it comes to the end of the season? And for perspective, I went back and captured how many we've had in the last few seasons. So anyone who was first team, either media or coaches, I counted. In 2021, we had 2 players. 2025, 19-5, 18-7, 17-7, 16-7, 15-10.
Wow.
That's pretty telling right there. At the trend.
15-10. That was Trevor Knight's season.
No, that was Baker
No, that was
Mayfield's
Baker Mayfield's
15?
season.
Oh, that was
inaugural
first-
season.
That was first Baker season.
First playoff
Yeah, that's
season.
right.
So,
Big 12 was down.
how many players do we think we'll have on the All Big 12 first team as named by either coaches or the media?
I'll go 5 to 7.
I've got 6, and I have them.
Oh,
I have
nice.
2 specifics named, or 3 specific named, and then 3.
I was going to say 3 to
Not-
4 is my number. Lucas?
Mine was 4 to 5.
Wow, I'm the pessimist.
I think 4 is probably where I settled.
The only thing that holds me back is it's so easy to find a one guy on any team. I mean, it can be Kansas.
That has
gets a
production.
guy there
Yeah.
and takes a spot.
Yeah.
But
Some random dude who has 7 interceptions
and then there's a little bit of, I wonder if there's some bias against OU in Texas still going on that might hold a guy back. But I'm interested in your list.
So, the players named, I have Dylan Gabriel, Marvin Mims, and Turk, who was already on the
Right.
preseason.
Yeah.
And then not named, I have 1 offensive lineman
Mm-hmm.
and 2 defensive players.
Mm-hmm.
So,
God, that's pretty easy to assume too, with as good as I think the defense is going to be, and
Yeah.
some of these guys. Like, if you give me just 2 of 11 I like those odds.
Yeah, I like the linebacker core that we have. I think you could find a guy who could pile up some tackles, and I think you could get someone off the edge who
I think-
might
I
be,
think
like,
Ethan Downs
or
is gonna be
even
a
I
monster.
think-
Downs or Redmond.
I
I
think-
think Redmond could have a big
I
year
think
as well.
Woody Washington and Key Lawrence
Yeah,
have a legit
DBs,
shot.
yeah.
Key
DBs.
Lawrence really excites me.
I don't
can
know that
see
they're going to
him
throw enough towards Washington's side for him to get
to
those
get the
to
stats.
get those. To
And
get the
hopefully you
stats.
balance
Maybe
it off
so.
with someone.
But you can still
As
be
good on the
first
other
team from
side.
that.
If they feel like you're
You
good
can,
enough,
but
right.
if you have like 2 interceptions and 3 pass breakups, and that's your whole
I mean,
Your whole
Dion,
season.
Dion was never in Pro Bowls because his stellar statistics. They're just like, oh, we
This
can't
guy's
throw it
awesome.
outside the field.
right.
the fans vote on the Pro Bowl.
But you get what I'm saying. It's just
Yeah.
we're not
Oh, it's
not
not
going
two
after
different
Dion.
fans.
yeah, but
versus
when
media.
a guy from Texas Tech has 6 interceptions, he's
Right.
going to get it over a guy with 2 interceptions and 3 pass breakups.
Even though that guy the second guy you're talking about is going to go first in
Right.
the draft, and the
Yeah.
other guy's going to go.
I think Ethan Downs dominates this season.
He looks hungry.
I don't know why.
he looked hungry in the spring game.
His motor
I
is
mean,
ridiculous, and I think he bulked up enough, and they're going to let him loose.
From the little glimpses you hear about him, you start to get excited about players like him, who you can assume safely will click with Brent Venables.
I start thinking like Dan Cody, like
Oh, yeah,
that
absolutely.
type
Yeah.
of guy. Like
Yeah.
just I'm gonna ruin your day.
I mean, dude, if he turns out to be Austin English, I'll be happy.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Like, that dude was unassuming, but he
Dom-
was valuable.
super
It's
valuable.
dominant.
Yes.
Super
I
productive.
think the interesting part of the preseason All Big 12 team, and so many OU players left off, it really wasn't about the OU players. There are actually stars in this league. They are just few and far between, but all the stars of this league have taken those positions on the preseason team. Like, it's going to be hard for Eric Gray or Barnes or
To
whoever
displace
to displace Deuce
Bijan
Vaughn and
and-
Bijan Robinson,
yeah.
right? So that's going to be
Right.
hard to get a running back on that list. They're
Right.
going to have a phenomenal season.
I know
Right.
OSU's got a couple guys in
That's
front
true.
7 that are really good, and it proven
Like
that they're really
defensive
good.
end.
but I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
also look at the
Same with Marvin Mims. I mean,
Yeah.
the
I don't think
Johnson
Mims
kid
is
from
up there.
the Johnson kid from TCU is a beast, and they just brought in Sonny Dykes, who's
well,
they're going to
so
throw
is
even more.
so is Worthy from Texas.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy.
So-
Um,
But I mean, look at the quarterback. I mean, Spencer Sanders is the best returning
You
quarterback
got
in
no,
the Big
Dylan
12.
Gabriel. Dylan, you can put it
It's
in the
insane.
bank right now.
Yeah, I'm
He
I'm
is
thinking
first
that.
team
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
Big 12 quarterback.
Right.
Dylan Gabriel.
Absolutely.
Barring injury, I think
Yes.
that's a no
Yeah,
brainer.
everything-
It's as if this preseason is just a hat tip to guys who are in their senior year and have paid
I
their
mean,
dues
there are
and all
good.
that.
I mean, there are highly recruited people that are showing up. But JT Daniels of West Virginia. I mean, he's bounced. He was at USC, then he went to Georgia. Now he's at West Virginia, but he was a 5-star.
I forgot JT Daniel
Yeah,
went to
he's at
West
West Virginia. And
Yeah.
then
and what
uh,
a story! Of
He was
his
Georgia's starter
recruiting.
last year.
you've
The
got
starter going into the season
Martinez
last year.
went from Nebraska to
Yeah.
Kansas State. Depending on how they use him,
Well,
he
got-
might rack up.
You got
some
That's a
You
stats.
got
damn good
Quinn-
coach.
Quinn
Kansas
Ewers.
State is a scary football
Yeah.
team.
Hey, I mean, he
That
may
coach
rack
coaches
up some stats.
the hell out of his team.
Well,
And
they're
if
scary because they know
Martinez
their system.
takes care of the ball.
Yeah.
They're well.
No,
he
They are
does.
going to
No,
be-
yeah, if he does, but he.
Yeah.
Ewers is a
you're gonna have to
freshman,
teach that.
but he's a 5-star kid. You don't know how it's going to turn out as his first action. He may be really good. Who knows? But I mean, I wouldn't say you can absolutely 100% lock in Dylan Gabriel at that spot.
Who's Iowa State got?
Nobody.
Nobody.
They like that kid as much as Brock Purdy, the kid that they've got.
Baylor, they told their starting quarterback to hit the portal.
Yeah.
And he did.
So they must feel pretty good about the other guy.
What's his name? Shapey, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So, changing gears a little bit, when will the Brent Venables honeymoon period end? Will it be in this season, within the next 3 years, within the next 7 years, like Stoops, or never?
Did Stoops have run out
I would say within the 7 year period. If you look in
See,
the
in that whole
That's surprising
Landry
to me
Jones,
that you
the whole
put that
Landry
number in there.
Jones type area?
Because in Stoops'
so
ninth season, we were in the championship game.
But it was, but that
the
it was,
honeymoon was over.
yeah, it was after that loss to. I mean, I would even say
So
the loss to USC, I
USC,
feel like,
and then the
it
2005
started souring.
and then the 2005 season, I would say the honeymoon was over.
Okay.
That
the
doesn't
Bo-
mean
the Bomar-
that doesn't mean you're not in love.
The
The
Bomar
Bomar
year.
season?
Okay.
Yeah,
But you're just like, all right, we're gonna have to grind some stuff out. We're not that.
you're not
We
going to
lost
be given.
to TCU and UCLA.
Yeah, you're
That-
not
yeah,
gonna
that
be
was a
just
big
given
turning
05.
a pass on anything that happens.
Coming off the blowout against USC, we
Right.
went into it. What did
Right.
we go 8-4 that season?
No, we ended up.
We lost to Texas, TCU, UCLA for sure in 05. Texas went to the Texas won a national championship that season.
Pretty sure we lost to Texas Tech that year
Did
too.
we end up?
At Tech?
Did
We
we
beat,
end up?
we beat number 5 Oregon in the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We end up. Yeah.
So we went 9-4.
maybe
8-4 regular
9-4,
season.
Yeah.
We definitely
Well, who
lost.
are our 4 losses?
We lost to TCU at home, Texas blowout. That was the Vince
UCLA.
Young game. UCLA on the road. That was 3, and then we lost.
I'm sure we
Baylor?
lost.
Was that the
again.
Tech? Was that the DeMarco Murray Tech?
No, we didn't lose to
No,
Baylor
that
until like
after
2011.
that.
That was our
Maybe
first
after
loss
that,
to
it's
Baylor.
2005.
Well, we can look it up while we're
Yeah,
thinking.
I got it right here.
So
I think the honeymoon
when-
period, I think the talent level that we have, the age of the team, the staff, and the relative weakness of the league, the honeymoon doesn't even have a chance to go away till SEC play.
I think the same thing. I think it would be in
We bust
a
out
season of
a
SEC
7-5 first year in the SEC, and we're all gonna be like,
No, I would say even if we are 9-3 and early on in the outside looking in for the SEC title game, then I'd say the honeymoon's over. We still may be in love. We still may be fine with everything as it goes, but the honeymoon's over. But I think it would take that, and I think that might be the second or third year in the league because of the trajectory we're on and where things may be headed. Keep in mind, the SEC has been on the decline in terms of league competitiveness. They've got 2 teams at the top of all of football and a big gap. And they've had that for a while now where it's just been different teams a little bit aside from Alabama.
It's been
Pennsylvania.
Bama
Occasional
consistent,
LSU.
then
Yeah.
LSU, Georgia, Florida flip-flopping.
And there's reason to believe Alabama won't always be that good, even if Saban is there, and Saban's not going to be there forever. So I would like to think that it's probably 5 years off before the honeymoon period ends.
I could see I could see year 3. Well, I think most level-headed OU fans would give
Like
him
myself.
would give him the next 2 years in the Big 12 and the first year in the SEC. But then after that, if we had a 8-4, not or 7-5 second year in the SEC, people would be like, okay,
yeah.
we better pull some shit together.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's a good point about the average fan, the level-headed fan. There's some different factions here that you have to think about that are so totally different.
And
in
you
their
and
reasoning.
you got to be able to recognize that a 9-3 SEC,
yes,
your team is actually better and still improving,
Than an
even though you
11-1.
went
And
11
the 11-1 Big
Yeah,
12
Big 12.
team.
yep.
So you got to be able to see that your team is actually on a trajectory still.
Yeah, and that'll be tough for us. That'll be tough to swallow. We can say it all we want in theory, but when we're actually faced with it, it's going to be tough, especially if we're losing to pick a team who may be good and we don't realize they're good. Tennessee would be a little easier because they're traditional, but what if you're losing to Mississippi and you don't respect Mississippi, but you should because all of a sudden they've actually become a competitive team? That'll be
Or Arkansas.
hard to swallow. Or it could be Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Connor?
Yeah, I said.
And did you look up the 2005?
Yeah, so TCU, UCLA, Texas, and Texas Tech,
Good job.
and beating Oregon in the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah.
Who was that? Rufus Alexander interception?
In the Holiday Bowl?
Who was it?
In-
Intercepted in the game.
in-
Kind of in the game. It
And
wasn't
we had the ball
Almost
like
at the
the
end
2,
zone?
we had to kneel it.
Yeah,
and we
and-
couldn't hardly kneel it.
And because
thought
Bomar
he
had
caught it like
that
at 15 or
sportsmanlike
something like
conduct,
that.
and we're
Yeah.
down to the 1 inch line,
It
he had
was
to
a-
actually go
It
forward.
was a linebacker who intercepted that. Who was it?
It might have been Rufus. That sounds about right. Well, what are your thoughts on the honeymoon?
I said 5 to 7 years, especially if he contends or wins a national title
good
within the
point.
first 5 years.
Good point.
I think if he wins,
title,
especially if he wins one, he buys himself another 6 years.
and
on
how
top of
nice
that.
will it be to not have to go through that incredible amount of stress that we went through in 2000 of you might lose Stoops,
Yeah.
and then to repeat that a few years later with the Florida,
Florida
gig.
thing. Yep.
So that won't happen.
Yep.
That won't
Yeah,
happen.
Venables is home.
Yep.
He's home, guys.
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, I think he's Joe pawing it out from there.
So, which of these does Brent Venables demand a higher level of as compared to Lincoln Riley? Success, professionalism, or something else? All of them, none of them? What are your thoughts?
I think Riley probably demanded a equal level of success. I don't think he would have been as successful if he didn't demand some sort of success from his team. I do think Venables demands much, much, much more professionalism. And on top of that, in the other category, I think he demands a lot more precision. I think it's you do your job and you do it well every time, or you're not going to be out there.
Discipline.
And you're not going to play.
Discipline.
Yeah.
That's a good
Sure.
way to say it.
So,
I was trying to find another thing like that distinguished from professionalism, and you could entail it in one or you could separate the two, and I think that fair in both cases. I do think that Venables is asking of every man, every person in the program, I want more professionalism, I want more discipline. What do you think?
Well,
I
knock
don't
on
know
wood.
how to say this appropriately or in the right way, but I think Lincoln preached success, and that was the main goal. But it was kind of like the top down, and I think Venables goes the other way. I think his professionalism, his discipline
Leads to success.
leads to the success. I don't think he's worried about the success because
It'll
he
take care of
knows
itself.
that gets there with these things.
That's
Yeah.
And I think Lincoln was like,
Yeah.
this is our goal. We're going to be successful.
Right.
You go. You
That's
guys
a
don't have to
great
show
point.
up for workouts. Oh, you guys can get in trouble off the field as long as we're winning games
Yeah,
and we
that's a
look
great point.
successful. I think Venables. I don't think he's worried at all about. I don't say it all. The success of the team. He just knows
He
the
knows it'll-
building blocks.
It'll take care of it.
Yeah, it all takes
That's a
care
good
of itself.
point.
That is a good point.
A misalignment of goals. And that's another thing you bring up that I had forgotten I wanted to bring up, which here we are at July 20th, and we have not
That's what I was supposed to knock on wood.
we have not yet had a guy
No arrests,
arrested.
yes.
No arrest. And like creative arrest, like big arrest. Like
Hey,
Yeah.
A&M's one of their team captains is supposed to
Yeah,
be
how
at
about
SEC tomorrow speaking.
Got a DUI.
Got a
DUI and a weapons charge and
weed.
marijuana.
so
All in the
I
same
would take
Team
that.
captain though.
I'm not as worried about that as the what were the charges with the violent armed robbery.
Yeah.
Like that worries me more. Now the weapons charge. I mean, I get it. It's you get pulled over and you're drunk and you've got weed in your car
And a
you've
gun.
got a gun. But I mean,
Unregistered or-
but a lot of
yeah.
people probably have a gun in their car, right? Like I'm a little more
It
forgiving
is
of
Texas.
that. Yeah, I'm a little more forgiving of that than I am the guy who takes the gun and pistol whips a guy because
Yeah.
it's a robbery gone wrong.
Don't get me
or
started on losing Mikey Henderson, our secret weapon last
One of the
season.
biggest losses in OU history
Killed
that
us.
will go unnoticed in the book of
That's so
in the
sad.
book of lore.
It's
He could have been
easy-
so good.
He would have been so good.
It's easy to point to, with our Homer glasses on and say, oh, the character of this team and the players that they're bringing in and so forth. But
I mean,
I
Stoops
think
was
from the
similar
top-
to Venables, and
yeah.
we still had issues occasionally.
yeah, they're kids. They're still kids.
Right.
But I think from the top down, I don't know that kids, the players, really thought they were going to let Lincoln down. I feel like this team is held accountable with their peers in the
I
locker
almost
room.
put accountability
I
on the
think
list.
if a kid lets Venables down or lets his team down, I think it's actually it's more impactful, maybe to their turnaround in their future. I think everybody else was just like, "Oh man, this happens. Everybody, don't worry about it. You'll be okay, man," and whatever. But I think these kids will really feel like I'm gonna let my team down, my position coaches down, my head coach down.
I think Venables is more of a father figure than the previous staff, or Lincoln, let's say. I think he wanted to be cool and hip. He wore the Jordans all the time. That was his big selling point. Was
He
wanted
wouldn't
to
even
be
take them off when he was
he wanted
in
to be
LA.
like one of the guys and players coach and all that, but the players still didn't feel like they could go talk to him with the open door policy. Whereas Venables is more father figurely and does have an open door policy and tries to connect on a personal level with that kid's families. Even like how many tweets did we see from family members of players last year that were shit talking the staff?
Absolutely.
Whether it be Grinch, McCutcheon's dad was talking
We're-
shit all the time,
and we're hearing about it going into a 9. We're 9-0. We're
Right.
We're
and their family complaining.
no, we're
about-
10-0, and we're hearing about it because
We didn't get to 10-0. We're 9. We lost to
10-1.
10-1, yeah.
10-1 going to OSU.
Baylor lost. Iowa State win. OSU
oh
lost.
yeah.
So
We
we were
that's
9.
right, yeah.
But
so go
but
9
we had
and
players,
0, 9
families
and 0,
tweeting.
and we're hearing about
Yeah.
it going into that Baylor game.
Whereas now you see, families tweeting, "Oh, Brent Venables spent 20 minutes with this recruit's sister,
Yeah.
taking picture with her and
Right.
talking to her about her elementary school or whatever," and it feels like a family. Which they did say when Lincoln was here. The OU guys were all talking about family this, family that, but literally the family of the players is where Venables connects with.
Yeah, like
He's
family,
a very
family and
relationship
home.
guy.
Like family
Yeah.
at home. It's like more that I've seen like from
All these
recruits
players
tweeting,
committing are
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
So-
same
this
way with
felt
these
like
commits.
home. That's what they're all saying.
We obviously don't know these high school kids that are committing, but there's a definite theme going on. They're quiet. They just do their job on
They
the
just do
field.
their
They do
job.
their job off the field. They don't have to come from a good home, but there's good structure. They're good people. Now, does that translate to wins? I don't know, but it seems like we're getting a different type of kid coming in for the future. And then what changes are made to the kids that are
As
already
they're
here
here.
that are still growing up as young
Yeah.
men,
Yeah.
having this kind of staff. Not just Venables, too. The whole
The
staff,
whole staff
is
yeah.
involved.
I feel like, and this is just obviously a feeling of an outsider looking in, and maybe this is just me hoping that this is the case, but I feel like if you are either a player who had an issue, maybe you've done something wrong, or maybe something's not going right for you, if you are today in the program, you could go to your coach, your position coach, or Venables, and you would have a listening, caring forum. Now, he may come down on you with something disciplinarily, but you're going to actually have an audience and somebody who actually cares, where you didn't have that before.
I think the
And
whole
even
soul
more so-
mission, I think there's
Yeah,
a
exactly.
whole there's a whole segment for that.
And if you were a family member, like a parent who had that, I think you'd also have an audience and somebody that would listen and take an interest and care, whereas I think it would be sort of more of a transactional relationship with Lincoln Riley, and you might not even have an audience in Lincoln Riley. You'd be dealing with somebody else.
Yeah. And I think that kind of like what you guys, just to maybe round it off, is something that Miguel Chavis tweeted just the other day after Ethan Downs did an interview. And his first point was connection must precede commitment. And I think that is what they are laying foundations out and getting those very, very, very baseline connections before the literal and figurative commitments. But I think they're keeping that. Like, to watch guys like Miguel Chavis, who honestly has been one of the biggest difference makers, I think, on the staff, especially in terms of getting out on the road and recruiting, just the overall, they're so locked in, like, to everything that's going on and forming those relationships, not only with players who were here before, but with guys who are coming in as well. Like, it's crazy. It's awesome to watch. And then, to have Brent Venables come in on the back end of all that stuff and also be just as equally involved, I don't know. It speaks loudly
It just
to the
seems
staff. we have.
genuine too.
Right.
There's nothing that feels like it's lip service, and so many of the things with Riley seemed like it was for show. It was hard to believe. Do you remember the recruiting video that got released where he's on the phone with a recruit and he's in the hallway and the guy says yes, he's going to come here, and he has this big cheer and it's real big. It looked fake, and we all identified it as being fake. We said that looks like that's probably how he really felt, but it's obviously a scripted performance that they just did for the video. And Venables isn't going to do the fake stuff. He's just not a fake person.
No.
So that I think that's a pretty big difference. Well, final question, what should OU's entry music be?
Oh, I struggle with this one.
I did too.
Yeah. Lucas, ideas?
Yeah, I struggle too.
So Lucas
Music
and I were
Man-
talking about
Music
this
Man
the
couldn't
other
come
day.
Up with it, huh?
And we were, because this, and you guys know this has become a conversation point where they've discussed they're going to have some changes and that might happen. We were talking about how you even go about picking a song and who your audience is. I think your audience is the fan, and your average fan is obviously not in their 20s.
Right.
And so you've got to probably pick something that is a recognized classic. My thoughts are a recognized classic rather than a song of the moment, because that moment might fade. 2, a current popular song or a new song might be by someone who gets canceled, which is okay if you just have to change the music, but it could be awkward if it becomes a thing.
Yep.
And you also have to get immediate buy-in for it. And I think that a kid can hear a song that is a timeless classic from 20 or 30 years ago and love it,
And get hyped
and get hyped, whereas I or someone older than me is not going to feel the same way about a song that may be a song of the moment, even though it's extremely popular.
Do we all agree that the intro is for the fans?
That's my thought, is that it's for the fans.
I go the other way. I go with what my players want. It's the hype up for the game. It's the coming out of the tunnel
I think it's an all-in-one
moment.
You think that, like Virginia Tech does Enter Sandman, how many of those kids know Enter Sandman before they step foot on Virginia Tech campus?
I think you need something that hypes the crowd up so that the crowd can hype you up as you come out of the tunnel. I
But
think
once it's a song
relatively
that's been in
mutualistic.
use for 5 years or more, that song belongs to that school. Let's say Enter Sandman, Virginia Tech. Let's say, and then those kids, when they come out, they know that
wanna
that's
enter
Virginia
to
Tech
that
song,
song.
Right.
and they're like, "Hell yeah!"
Which we don't
Enter
really
Sand-
have.
you know,
We don't really have. We have Crazy
Crazy Train.
So you're in
But that's
favor.
going into the locker
That's going
room.
into the
going
locker.
into
We
the
don't have
locker,
anything
right.
that comes out.
So you're
That's what we're talking
you're in
about.
favor of.
I think it's gotta be
one
for both.
song we stick with
Forever.
for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Not
Not a
necessarily.
yearly change.
No, I'm not even on
I'm-
board
that's what I'm for.
necessarily with this idea at all.
Wisconsin,
I might be on board with Boomer Sooner.
Wisconsin does the jump around going into the fourth quarter,
Right.
And that's their thing. Everybody in the stands does jump around. It's crazy, blah blah blah. Virginia Tech has the Enter Sandman. I think we need something similar. Fans get hyped about. The players know that that's the song firing up.
I could be okay
And,
with
and
it,
for the
but
next
my,
2 decades, it's a song that
my
everybody
gut
knows.
says we go with Boomer Sooner, and we don't. Just like we don't screw with the uniforms, we don't screw with it.
Well, as a fan, no matter how many games you go to, no matter what part of the season, when I hear the bell and I know that the little
Yes.
video's coming up,
Yes.
I still get
Chills.
goosebumps.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
Every
saying.
time.
The
Yes.
5-year-old
But
in
the
you
players are
lights
in
up.
the locker room at that point.
Right.
But-
So
and
that
I-
is for the fans.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't get rid of that.
But that didn't start until what, like 05, 6, 7, 8-ish?
Yeah, somewhere
that-
around there.
that
It
wasn't
hasn't
the
been a
whole Stoops era.
long-lasting
No.
tradition.
No.
But
That
I think
was
with the
middle of the Stoops era is when
Yeah,
it started.
somewhere
I
in
would
there.
say.
Yeah,
I think Jay,
Turn
to
this
your
ball
point,
into this ball, that whole
right.
deal.
I think Jay, to your point, maybe it's maybe the fans get the intro video to get us hyped and get us pumped up, and you're showing
And now
highlights
we're
from last game, and maybe you have something going on in the tunnel where you have
Drake
a
or
song
some
of the
shit
week
or-
where, hey, what do you guys want to run out to this week? Or if it is a song like Lucas, like you said, if it's something that you guys know, hey, this song means like we're about to go wreck shit on the field, and this is what we're gonna play. In
That's
the
what I
tunnel.
want.
Like if the players are the only ones that hear that, great. Crap, pump that out to the stadium though. I'm not gonna object to it one bit, but I do think there needs to be a better segue between the video and making sure you end that video on a high note, which I know they try to with there's only one. Like I get that.
And I love that there's only one, but you can transition from that to the song. So
How about let the bodies hit the floor?
I don't remember, but we've done away with James Garner saying this is Oklahoma football, right? And that was a few years ago, really in the advent of the only one Oklahoma. And what's kind of sad for
I
me
love
is that
James Garner.
people don't know
Yeah.
James Garner,
Yeah.
and they don't know he's an Oklahoma guy,
Right,
Oklahoma
a Norman
boy made
guy.
good, Norman guy,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, just there's a statue of him over
Right.
there. and just like and he
James
was
Garner Avenue, or
and
whatever it is,
he
Boulevard.
was the man.
Yeah.
He was such a badass. But eras change and people change. But I do think I
love
can
the
see
one.
the
There's
room
only
for
one
music
Oklahoma with a different player each week.
Or
I love
coach,
that
yeah.
too.
I mean,
I love
Switzer's
that too.
awesome. Stoops is
Right.
awesome.
But
and
rotating
but doing
through,
rotating
I
players.
love the rotation.
And you only get 6 home games.
and you can do a song then.
But
Now-
yeah, that's what I think. I think you could do a hybrid of both. I think you do the intro video.
Uh-huh.
You do there's an only one. I still love. I think you could do the walk out from the locker room to the tunnel and have that song like Virginia Tech does with Inner Sandman. You find that song,
Mm-hmm.
you do your video. Fans are already hyped because of the video, and then you pan to the locker room, and that's when your guys start walking out, playing the song.
That's what I want.
And then somehow you time it to where either a drop of the song or the chorus or something hits right when you release the gates.
And,
you
and
let
we
'em go.
talked. Lucas and I were talking about this the other day, thinking it needs to be something that is obviously recognizable and
popular enough that everybody knows
hits
it.
right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's got to have an intro that's a certain
Okay.
intro.
Okay. So does that lead you to a genre?
It
There's
might
only 2 choices, right?
Yeah.
Rock or rap.
Rock and rap.
rock
Yeah.
or rap. It has to be rock or rap. It can't be some country song just because country has. It's
gonna be too slow.
It's too slow. It's the wrong. It's
And you can't
too
use
mellow.
Seven Nation Army because
What
that's
if you went
that's all
total-
over the country.
What if you went total psych out, and you went like
Total
Neil
silence.
Young or Neil Diamond, and the players walked out of the tunnel?
No thanks.
I think that actually could be.
The other
I was
team
thinking
would- the
even
other team
deeper
would
than
be
that.
like,
You could do
whoa.
like a small world and really freak people out. And like these guys are total psychos because
Yeah.
they're gonna party to this music. Yeah, they're
I would,
obviously.
I would take earplugs if they're going to play Small World.
I think it should be MacArthur Park by Richard Harris.
I think there's some opportunity to definitely improve that portion of the lead up to kickoff. Because I will admit, like, even the kickoff to any game, regardless of whom we're playing, we have a pretty decent atmosphere at the field.
I think it's a great.
I think it's
atmosphere,
great. I
yeah.
think you get Boomer Sooner going when the away team comes out. I think you get this kind of fever pitch up until do a decent job, but the music has
it's
to.
anticlimactic.
It is.
right there.
It falls very
and
quickly.
actually, what used to happen right now, it has disappointed me over the years recently that they just run out of the tape tunnel, and it's just this weird spilling out.
Yeah.
Back in the Switzer days, Barry Switzer would interlock arms with the cheerleaders, and they would lead, and the whole group is behind him, ready to go. And it was like Release the Dogs of War. And then they all released and came out together, and that was more of a unison thing that I liked. And I'd like to see that again, rather than they just, as you come out of the tunnel, make your way. I'd
Yeah.
rather it be out in a much more, we're ready, we're fired up, and this is happening.
I'm hoping night games are better with the LED lights they've installed. Like, or I'm pretty sure
Uh-huh.
they installed them. They should be better. I
Oh,
would
they
assume, for
definitely installed
intros.
them. I've watched the guys for several days
Really?
now up there.
So I mean, the LEDs should be better. Like, you should have an
You should
overall.
be able to do some different things
yeah,
with
some yeah.
Dude,
so,
if there's a crimson red out,
Oh,
or
that
the
would be so
whole
wicked
place is just
cool.
red out for the.
If we don't, here's failure. If we don't have at least 6 cases of epileptic seizure during the lead-in in the
we're
opening,
definitely not winning a national championship.
yeah. No,
I think if you get something rock related coming out, and then when the Roughnecks fire the shotguns, it's in unison with a drum
It
beat.
breaks to a
That'd be
to
It's
a
like
beat.
Oh, that'd
whatever
be
the
cool.
drum beat is, like
Yeah. Oh, that'd be
you know,
cool.
with the Roughnecks.
Yeah,
firing
make
it on
the
beat.
Roughnecks actually do something.
Yeah,
as opposed To
exactly.
just screw around down there and
They
crash.
keep evil spirits
schooners.
and demons out away from the north end zone
I mean,
goalpost.
so
That's the
no
chant
no
they do.
song. You don't have a suggestion written down for
I
a
don't.
specific song.
No, I don't.
Wow.
That's a
I
really
didn't
tough
have
one.
anything.
That's a
It's
really tough one.
It's
We'll have to do
tough.
some looking. Because it is
I don't want
such
to do
a-
it because I don't want to be disappointed by what they choose
Yeah.
if they choose one. I think you should have gone with this, guys.
It's
I'm
a
right,
really
you're wrong.
fragile. It's a really fragile balance. Too,
It is.
between
And if it's
doing
something they're going
something
to
that
use for a
doesn't
couple
work.
decades, or how
I could
it's
see.
very important. Honestly,
I'll tell you one that you can be kind of safe with. That would be awesome. Would be several choices from Led Zeppelin
Yeah.
because extremely popular, great beats, and they are way past worrying about getting them canceled.
right?
It's not going to happen.
So like Black Dog,
I think there's a lot of Led Zeppelin that would be awesome.
and then AC/DC. You can't really do like Back in Black because
Right, yeah.
we're-
Not
we
black.
better never wear black,
yes, exactly. That'd be
or I'll stop going to games.
That'd be giving up.
What about alternate uniforms? Anybody thought about that for this season?
Burn 'em.
Do we have an alternate uniform this year?
I hope not.
I hope not too.
I hope we take out. I hope we wear the alternate uniforms out for a warm up and then do a burning ceremony at midfield
That
before
would
the
be
game
that would be fitting.
to say
It was-
this is old.
But
You're
it's
tired of
So
bringing
we
the
brought
wood,
the
huh?
No,
wood
I'm-
out
do you-
for Lincoln, right?
Do you not think we have a new alternate uniform?
no,
is
we
what
brought
I'm
the wood
talking
out
about.
before, like 2014, I think is when we
It
did it.
hasn't been here that long.
Do you think we have a new alternate uniform?
No,
No,
we would have seen it by now. I really think we would.
Probably would have. Yeah, I'd be a little
Unless like
surprised.
Venables hit Nike up and Jordan up.
I
and
haven't
was like,
seen
Yo,
the
like,
the Tottenham third kit yet, and the season starts in a week and a half. So
that's also
who
from,
knows?
Yeah, they rotate jerseys every year though, or uniforms every year. I feel like we would have heard about it.
Well, I think we should get back together sometime soon. Talk about how things are proceeding with fall camp, and get into some hardcore predictions in the coming weeks for the upcoming season.
Maybe one more pod before the season, and
Oh.
then one more before our
no.
one more before our pregame pod.
Yes,
At least two
At least
before the
one.
start
At
of the
least
season.
two before the start of the season. Maybe three. We could definitely get. We might need to do a full stay the night before, and we get it really going on the pod before the season.
Oh man, we could do picks.
Is it-
We could do picks for all the games. We could pick 10 games. Pick 'em.
That could be awesome. We could do that or we could do that on Friday and then go home and come back for the 2:30 game. But
If anybody has any suggestions for
Yeah.
the song, give us a
Yeah.
hit up on Twitter.
yeah, hit us on Twitter, and until then, Boomer Sooner.
Boomer
Boomer
Sooner.
Sooner.
Boomer Sooner.